Tuesday, and it's January 3rd. Thomas Dimitrovich here. Hopefully everybody had a great New Year's. I see we've got chatting going on already. Lou, thanks for asking your question. And Ryan Jackson just jumped right on that one. This question is coming in over YouTube, Lou Petrucci. So thanks and Happy New Year. And so the question that came in about where in the code does it say an OCPD can only be used up to 80%? And Ryan adequately, effectively pointed out in 215.3 and 210.20, overcurrent device to be sized. Now, I will say let's take a look at 210. So the question is 80%. Well, I'm already digging right into this, so that's a really good question. But in 210.20, branch circuit conductors and equipment for circuits not exceeding 1,000 volts AC or 1,500 volts DC shall be protected by overcurrent protected devices that have a rating or setting that complies with A through D. And A tells you about the continuous and non-continuous. So the key thing there is, Lou, that if your circuit breaker is not exceeding 1,000 volts AC or 1,500 volts DC. So that's when you get into the 80% rule. Everything else, when you get into the medium voltage equipment, that stuff is 100% rated. And that's why we say when it's 100% rated. And you should have an exception in there, which is the exception in A. So if you have equipment specifically that is listed as 100% rated. So great question to start the new year off, 80% versus 100%. And remember the distinction between medium voltage and low voltage equipment. So I don't know what size circuit breaker you are talking about when you say OCPD. I'm going to make the assumption I believe that Ryan made is that you're talking low voltage. Medium voltage, you don't have to worry about that. But always check the equipment. Welcome to Tuesday. Carlos Ramirez, Happy New Year from the Buckeye, Arizona. Welcome and Happy New Year from right here in Weirden West, by God, Virginia, and smile when you say it. So hopefully all of you out there had a great New Year's. So I just want to say that today I want to kick off, and Felix, Happy New Year to you as well. I want to say we're going to kick off the 2023 year with a discussion around electrical safety, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about the hierarchy of risk control that we find in 70E. So let's just say that it all starts right now. All right, had to press the button. Well, Lou, great job. 240 volts, absolutely. Everything down there is going to be neat. Now the discussion, Felix and Carlos, welcome to the team here. But the discussion that Lou brought up right off the bat before we even got started was the use of overcurrent protected devices at 80%. Now, as Ryan Jackson pointed out in 210.20, 210 is your feeders or your branch circuits. You'll see the same thing in 215, and I believe you should probably see it over here in 230 as well. I'm sure it's got to be in 230 as well. In any case, I'm not sure where exactly it's going to be. I'd have to do a quick look at so in 230.23 is your size and ampacity of your conductors. And anyway, I gotta find, I'm not sure where the overcurrent protection is. It's got to be in 230 as well. I'm hoping it's in 230 as well. But in any case, Robert from Omaha, yes, thank you, sir. You are the man. So Low voltage, Lou, is going to be at your 80%. And remember, if you have a piece of equipment and how you get to the 80% is through your load calculation, right? So and this is the tricky part of the 80% versus 100% discussion. You just don't go and say, hey, I'm going to buy 80% or 100% breakers. And how do you get there? When you're doing your load calculation to size your conductors, right? So what we do is we do a load calculation. If we take 125% times the load current for the continuous load currents, and then 100% for the non-continuous load currents, and then I select my conductor. So when you select your conductor based on 100% of non-continuous and 125% of continuous, you're selecting the conductor, and then the conductor, once you pick your conductor, then you're just picking your circuit breaker to protect the conductor, right? And as long as you're doing the 125% and the 100%, et cetera, 125% for continuous, then you know you're into an 80% rated device, and there's nothing else you really need to do. You're picking the overcurrent device to protect the conductor because you've selected a larger size conductor based on the 125%. And the reason we picked that larger conductor for continuous loads is because of heat in the equipment. And it's not just because of the overcurrent device, okay? So it's not just because of the overcurrent device, the 125%. Okay, so, hey, Jody Wages. We're getting closer, I know. So, now here's the thing. If you don't do the 125% and you elect to just go to 100% for continuous, that means you're going to have to buy a 100% rated circuit breaker, but you're also going to have to make sure that that breaker and the equipment, right? So they go hand in hand. And I've done a few discussions on this during this for IAEI News Lives, where we talk about when you select overcurrent protected devices, you've got to think about the steel you wrap around that overcurrent device. What is the assembly that I'm putting it in? So, Lou, you just don't go and buy a 100% rated circuit breaker and say, okay, you did this for 100% rated, so I'm going to go buy a 100% rated circuit breaker and put it in that panel board. Because the panel board itself may require a special copper, high density copper bus. If the panel board has an aluminum bus, forget it. It's not going to be 100% rated, period. Right? So you've got to look. It's not just about the circuit breaker, is my point. It's about the circuit breaker and the assembly. In some cases, I could have an assembly that will never be 100% rated because it has aluminum bus. All of your 100% rated equipment is going to have a copper bus. And in some cases, the manufacturer is going to tell you it needs to be a high density copper bus with only specific circuit breakers to get your 100% rating. So you've got to be very, very careful. I try to tell people this all the time. Why would you use 100% rated? Because you want to use smaller conductors, because you're not doing the 1.25, so you're going to use a smaller conductor, and you're going to lose, and that's pretty much it. I mean, because you're going to spend more money on the 100% rated equipment that it goes into, and you really got to do the cost justification. And if you did not think about it, you're not going to re-pull all those wires. If you sized all of them at 100%, which means you use smaller conductors, and now you're going to have to probably change out a panel board if it's not the right panel board, and you've got to really cross your T's and dot your I's. You got to know exactly what you're getting into when you start doing that stuff, because it can be a challenge. And I'll give you an example. What we'll do is we'll just run out to a manufacturer's panel board and always want to accept all cookies. And I know we want to get into, I want to get into a safety discussion, but this is a great, I'm going to call you a springboard. Yeah, Robert from Omaha. It has to all be rated correctly. And I'm just going to try to pick, I'm going to pick a panel board. Power line. I'm going to pick one of these panel boards. It's thinking. I'm going to go to resources. I'm going to just download a catalog. Catalogs, panel boards, and lighting controls. And I'm going to do a Control F, 100%. 100%. Control F, 100%. All right, so search. There we go. And where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Hold on. I just disappeared. Let's do this. And I am not going to do that. There we go. All right, so look at this. This is out of a panel board manufacturer's catalog, and it says 100% rated circuit breaker requires copper bus, not available in type 12, 4, and 4X enclosures. So, and this is a panel board manufacturer's catalog. So if you pick the wrong, if you've started the design incorrectly, then you're going to have, if you design it, if you forgot to do the 1.25 and you just bought standard equipment, the fix can be expensive, in my opinion. So you want to make sure, if you're going down that road, cross your T's, dot your I's, and don't cross your I's and dot your T's. So great discussion. Thank you, Lou, for bringing that question to the table. That's what this is all about. And we got some great people watching it. So now just do me a favor and don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to hit those thumbs up. Need those thumbs up, and if you want to hit the thumbs down, you got to hit them twice. But don't forget, get over there. If you're watching this on LinkedIn or somewhere else, remember, please, let's go. Get over here on YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're getting closer and closer and closer. So please pop out over there and subscribe. So I've just pulled up the LinkedIn. So if anybody puts a question on it, Lou, good one. Yes. Good. Excellent question. Excellent question. All right. So let's close this down and let's try something here. I don't know why I am not in the picture. There. Hey, there I am. I didn't press the button. I had to press the button. All right, so now I figured out my buttons. Geez, oh man. Anyway, and I don't want. I want the ATEM. There it is. All right, 2023. We want to start off the year with a discussion around the 2023. I want to talk about electrical safety just in general. So we ended last year, last week. Last week was after our Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas, and it was before New Year's. And we did a little holiday discussion, right? We talked about safety in a residential home, primarily the use of cords, etc. So what I thought would be kind of cool is to kick off this year with a discussion around electrical safety, which again, the National Electrical Code, great from an installation perspective. I think about the trilogy. I call it the trilogy. The National Electrical Code, which are your installation requirements, and yeah, you're welcome, Lou. You have your installation requirements from an NEC perspective. You have 70B, which is maintenance, and then you have NFPA 70E. Now, this is the 2021 edition, and it's whether we're going to be coming out with the 2024 edition in June of this year. They will be, in June of this year, they're going to be ushering in a 2023, 2026, 2026? No, 2024. It's 2021. So 2024, so June of this year. Jeez, oh man, Lou, Felix, I'm getting old and senile here. In June of 2023, if there's no NITMAMs, then it will become a consensus document. Notice of intent to make a motions. And what do those do? When are those due? Lou, when are those due? If I go to NFPA 70E, I'm going to try something here. Hopefully that's not too bad for y'all. Quit. I know, Ben. I'm like fast forwarding to 2020. Man, jeez, oh man. All right, so here's what we do. So we go to NFPA 70E, and we go to the next edition. And what you'll see here is this is the annual 2023 code cycle. So June of 2023, we will be ushering in a new edition of 70E. So here we are. The NITMAM closing date is March 28th. And you know what that is? Lou, Ben, Felix, March 28th is the day before my birthday. A very important day. March 29th. I mean, that history was made March 29th. I'm just here to tell you. So March 28th is the NITMAM closing date. And I believe, and I'm going to go out on a limb, remember, anything you hear, question, anything you see, question even more on this site, because what comes out of here originated here, but it's all from the heart. Bobby Joe, yes, I do have a flowered. This is my my flowered coffee cup. I'll tell you what I like, Jody, or I'll tell you what I like about this coffee cup. It's very thin. It's like a porcelain cup, I guess. I don't know, but it's really thin, and it's a smaller cup, but it holds more coffee. Even an ounce of more coffee is worth using a flowered cup. Okay. My masculinity is okay. So NITMAM closing date, March 28th, 2023. And I believe if no NITMAMs are proposed or submitted for this cycle, then it becomes a consensus document. So we're going to be, hey, thank you, Lou. Thank you. We're going to cross our fingers, because if there are no NITMAMs, it becomes a consensus document. But you never know. So So if you want to see the process, so you could see the first draft and you can see the public comments. I know the correlating committee has already gone through and made their and looked at the second draft and came back to the committee. And so there's your first draft committee report. Here's your second draft committee report. And that's all there is. And then here's your correlating committee. So you can second draft meeting notices. So second draft Microsoft Teams. So you can, and I think this is, yeah, so this was date November 11th. All right. So in any case, the correlating committee has already looked at the second draft, and there's the final ballots. So hopefully we will be done with 70E. Hey, Tommy D, Willie Snyder, welcome, buddy, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody watching, and thanks for joining in. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. All right, so we are getting close to our, my goal was 1,000 by last year, and I missed it by that much. So I need you guys and gals out there, if you're not already a subscriber, then gets free, get over there to the IAEIs, get over there to the IAEI YouTube channel and subscribe. We're 4 away from 1,000. That's where I want to be, and I want to get there. I'm going to feel comfortable with it. So please, we can do a lot of great things once we get to 1,000 subscribers. So, and hopefully you got to see Rudy Garza's Happy New Year note. And I think he came out last Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So, take a look and watch that video as well. All right, so, boom, electrical safety. So I want to talk a little bit about the hierarchy risk control methods. Now, 70E, and what I am going to do is, as I go down through here, I'm going to call up the second draft. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to have the second draft sitting over here, because I'm looking at the 2021 edition. So there are 6 aspects of hierarchy of risk control methods. Now, you'll find the hierarchy of risk control methods in Article 110. So Article 110, Chapter 1, let's just look at it this way. Chapter 1 of 70E is titled Safety-Related Work Practices. I would not expect to find the hierarchy of risk control in safety-related maintenance requirements or special equipment. And in Chapter 1, you have Article 100, which is definitions. You have Article 110, 105, which is application of safety-related work practices and procedures. I wouldn't expect to find the hierarchy of risk control in 105. In 110, general requirements for electrical safety-related work practices. So there's a possibility. I feel comfortable that it probably is in 110, but let's take a look at what the other 2 articles in Chapter 1. 120 is establishing an electrically safe work condition. I would feel very comfortable that the hierarchy of risk control methods is not going to be in the article that's covering establishing an electrically safe work condition. And if I look at 130, work involving electrical hazards, the hierarchy of risk control methods is definitely not going to be in Article 130. So I know we're not in Article 100. I'm just giving you the process of elimination. This is like codology 101. We know we're going to be in Chapter 1. We know we're not going to be in Article 100. We're not going to be in 120 or 130 articles. Robert, yeah. And we are in 110 for general requirements for electrical safety work related. Now, in 110, what they did in the last cycle, and I believe in the next edition, in the 2024 edition of 70E, they're focusing more and more on elevating the importance of establishing an electrically safe work condition. So, and in my opinion, if I think about the hierarchy of risk control methods, your first job, number one in that list, which is the most important, is elimination. And your least important, I want to say least important, your last resort is PPE. So if I think about the changes that have been occurring in 70E over the last two cycles, I would argue that the panel and those who are submitting public inputs and public comments are following this list of importance, and they're raising the importance of elimination in 70E. So think about what they did last cycle. Last cycle in 110, they made a change and they moved some things around, raising the importance of hazard elimination. Hazard elimination is the first priority in the implementation of safety-related work practices. Now, that's 110.1. This cycle, they did a couple things. In 110, and in all of the articles within 70E, they said we need to follow the NFPA style manual because 70E and the National Electrical Code are the two documents that follow the NEC style manual. So 110.1 is no longer priority. 110.1 is now scope. And then what they did was they said, look, instead of calling 110.1 priority, they made 110.2, they have scope, and then they have 110.2, which focuses on electrically safe work condition. Now, I could argue that hazard elimination, that establishing the electrically safe work condition is an integral part of hazard elimination. What are you doing? You're removing voltage, you're removing all of the stored energy, you're following the entire process of, 120? Article 120 is titled Establishing an Electrically Safe Work Condition. So you're following everything in 120. You're doing your lockout, tagout principles, all that good stuff. And you are eliminating the hazard. Now, in 110.2, they tell you that's the focus. And again, in my humble opinion, they're following these hierarchy of risk control methods in the layout of 70E. So the first thing they're doing is they say in the electrically safe work condition for 110.2, they're telling us to worry about our policies, and they address when it's required. When do you so they put in positive text this cycle. They put in positive text the aspect of establishing an electrically safe work condition. Anything greater than 50 volts, right? So that's AC or DC. And they tell you when it's required, when you have an employee within the limited approach boundary, you have employees that interact with the equipment or conductors. They give you some informational notes, and then they say in B, they give you exceptions to establishing an electrically safe work condition when it's required. That's where now you're going to find when you don't have to, like if turning off power can create a greater hazard, right? Or if you are doing troubleshooting. So those are where you're going to have your exceptions to establishing the electrically safe work condition. So they're, in my opinion, they're getting your head in the game, just why I said, well, I want to kick this year off with talking about electrical safety, because you got to get your head in the game. And coming off of a holiday, we all have had at least a week, or I'm going to say we all, many of us worked through the holidays. But some of us some of you took some time off for family and friends and relax and get your head out of the game, right? So out of the normal day to day, and now you've got to get back into that game. And especially if you're going out there in the field, and if you had a week or two off and you haven't had your belt on, you haven't been out on a job site, then you've got to get your head back into that game. And if you're in design, don't forget about what we learned all last year about this hierarchy of risk control, eliminating, substituting, engineering controls. If you can get in those, if there's things that you can do in the top 3 list, then we can help electrical safety this year. So 70E has moved some things around this cycle. And in the edition I have, which is the 2021 edition, you have your priority, which is hazard elimination, which is right there. Right? And I really like what they did last cycle, but it didn't have a scope. And then when they added the scope, they said, well, let's take a look at, establishing an electrically safe work condition really is your hazardous, is your elimination. So if I think about elimination, you're removing the hazard. You could be removing unqualified people from the area. So if you have, for example, if you're a forklift operator, or you have crane operator, or whatever that, those types of environments, or from an electrical perspective, arc flash, if you say, look, we're not going to let anybody in this whole area while this work is going on, that eliminates, it doesn't necessarily eliminate the hazard, but eliminates people from exposure to the hazard. So when you think about elimination, I think you got to get out of the box a little bit. We're talking about hazard elimination, removing the hazard, but in some cases, you can remove the hazard by removing the people from that area. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's sort of what I'm thinking. Anyway, so then 110.2 in the new cycle, which used to be general, and then 110.3 in the 2021 was electrically safe work conditions, so they moved that up. And then you have your electrical safety program, and this is where you're going to find your hierarchy of risk control methods. So in the 2021 edition, it was in your 110.4 energized work. In 110.5 was your electrical safety program, and now it's 110.3 in the latest edition of 70E that hasn't been published yet. But in 110.5, we have electrical safety program. You have your general requirements, you have your inspection, you have condition of maintenance, 70B, and then you have awareness and self-discipline, electrical safety program principles, electrical safety program controls, and then G is electrical safety program procedures, risk assessment, and then as part of the risk assessment, you have your elements of risk assessment procedures. So you have to be able to identify the hazards. You have to assess the risk. What is risk? Risk is likelihood and severity. So what's the likelihood of an event? What's the severity of the event? I could have a very high likelihood, but severity is very, very low. Your severity could be the go to the dry cleaners type of severity, or severity can be very high, which could be death due to shock or arc flash. And now you want to address the severity. So risk is being able to manage likelihood and severity. So then you move down, you have human error. Then you have the hierarchy of risk control methods. Now you have 6 different items, right? You've got elimination, substitution, engineering controls, and then awareness. Now, here's my thoughts on this. Awareness is really critical. And why do I say it's really, really critical? I think awareness is very critical because you can't eliminate a hazard if you're not aware of what the hazards are. You can't make substitutions and engineering controls unless you know what the hazards are and you understand risk. So, hazard awareness is a very important piece of this equation. And I don't think that that you could lay the whole book out. So in your 110.3 or 110.5 in the 2021 edition, you have your general, you have your inspection, condition, awareness, and self-discipline is D. And I think that's appropriate. I think awareness has to be high in your electrical safety program because you want to make sure engineers and designers understand what the hazards are, because they can't engineer hazards out if they don't understand the hazards. For example, if you didn't know that 50 volts was your threshold, how would you know in your possible engineering controls or substitutions, how would you know that, hey, if I do 24 volt DC controls, I'm eliminating a hazard. I'm removing 120 volts from my design, anything above 50 volts. If I remove anything above 50 volts from my design, I'm effectively eliminating a hazard, electrical hazard. But if I didn't know that threshold, then I would not know how to substitute or create those engineering controls. So what we need to understand are the hazards. 90.2b says the same thing in 70 and 70E. 90.2b. Let's take a look at 90.2b. 90.2 is scope, and B is what's not covered. This standard does not cover safety-related work practices. So installations in ships, railways. So what your point there is, Willie, that this does not cover certain areas, and it's very much in line with the National Electrical Code. So 70 and 70E are in lockstep with each other. I don't know, Willie, if you've looked at 70B and what the scope is there to see if the scopes align there as well, because while 70B does not follow the NEC style manual, but still the scopes probably are similar. So, all right, so elimination and awareness is really critical. Remove unqualified persons from the areas. Avoid working on energized equipment. So establish the electrically safe work condition. I can eliminate the hazard if I put everything at 24 volts DC, right? I mean, there's only so much you can do in so many places. You can't eliminate that hazard of shock and arc flash, but it is possible. Yes, you don't know what you don't know is right. All right, so the other one is substitution. So let's think about substitution. Remember, again, I think about likelihood and severity. This is managing risk, right? So can I reduce the hazard? Can I reduce likelihood, and can I reduce severity? So substitution. What if I substituted, if I had, for example, LED lights. If I had a lot of lighting in my facility, and I knew I had to change bulbs, I don't know, let's say every month you have people up on lifts changing bulbs, changing, oh, come on, use the right terminology. I know you have the luminaire, and then you have the, oh man, what's the right terminology? Robert, help me. Willie, help me. Right terminology, and they're not bulbs. Oops. You got lighting fixtures and, anyway, luminaires, I guess you would call it, right? So if I move to a solution that has me, instead of having to put a lift out there every month, lamps, thank you, Felix. If I have to re-lamp, gosh, if I select a lamp that is, say, an LED, bulbs, bulbs go in the ground and grow into plants. I mean, lamps, it's exactly right. And I caught myself when I said it, Ryan. Jeez, oh man. But you know what? I love the fact that all of you out there, Ben, I'm going to get to your question. So if I can choose a solution that doesn't cause me to re-lamp as often, I'm reducing the hazard. I'm reducing the hazard because, well, I'm not reducing the hazard. I'm reducing the likelihood from a risk, but I'm reducing risk because I don't have to get up in that lift as often. So I can make some substitutions, is my point, that can reduce likelihood or reduce severity, right? I can use voltages below the shock threshold. I could argue, is that elimination? Probably not eliminating everything because you do have other hazards there. You can have heat, right? I could still have a short that could heat the enclosure and have burns. So again, you're just managing risk. So Ben Straley, I'm gonna go with Straley. It's not a stupid question. It's a really good question. 70E. I'll tell you who I am aware that adopts 70E as well as 70B and Bravo are your labs, your Los Alamos labs and etc. Those types of government-owned labs will require 70E. But 70E is not legally adopted. It's not like the National Electrical Code, which is why people love to put certain things in here that are the hooks that get you to here. And maintenance as well. And you could say, well, it's inappropriate to have maintenance requirements in the code. But the reason that I think the motivating factor that this book includes certain items that you could arguably say, it doesn't belong in here, it belongs over there in that other book. It's because this is adopted into law, right? So you have a legislature, in a lot of cases, you'll have a legislature actually adopt this into law and say you got to follow the National Electrical Code or whatever code they've adopted in those jurisdictions. Now, we put ground fault circuit interrupter requirements in here, GFCI, and that is a last resort on the hierarchy of risk control, right? So that you have your actually GFCIs are probably, I would say, in your administrative controls, possibly. Maybe I could argue engineering controls. There's some sort of controls, but that's where we're at with 70E. And I'll tell you who enforces 70E, Ben. So here's the next question: is who enforces 70E? You and me, and hopefully, hopefully not. Hopefully us, we enforce 70E, but at the end of the day, 70E probably arguably gets enforced by OSHA when they come to town after an incident and they say, well, because remember, OSHA will cite you on OSHA requirements. They won't cite you on 70E. They'll cite you on their requirements, but they use 70E as their sort of this is what you should have been doing, right? So they can't say, well, you didn't follow 110.5, right? And here's the other thing, Ben. 70E is the ingredients for your safety meal. So as an owner, if you're an owner or whoever is an owner of a business, will have to follow the requirements of 70E, which says you need to have a safety program. The employer, in 110.5A, the employer shall implement and document an overall electrical safety program that directs activity appropriate to the risk associated with electrical hazards. So as the owner or the employer, if OSHA comes to town because somebody was injured in your facility and you don't have a safety plan, you've got a problem. 70E will tell you how to build that and will give you your defense. Arguably, I think, can give you your defense in your argument. Say, look, I did X, Y, and Z. I did what I was supposed to do. I have a safety plan. It says I need to educate. It says I need to make PPE available. It says I need to do X, Y, and Z, and this still happened. There was a breakdown somewhere. But as an employer, we need to be following these rules and pick out of here what's applicable to our installations. Not everything in this book is going to be applicable to every aspect. So a lot of people make a mistake and say, well, I'm going to hand out 70E to all my guys and my gals, and I'm going to have them read it. And this is my safety plan. No, your safety plan will be a subset of this and maybe more than this. Your safety plan is going to include your education, your all of those items that are a part of raising awareness for your facility. For example, you may not do any medium voltage work. So that means when you go into this table, for your boundaries, for your shock protection and approach boundaries, 130.4E, you're not going to have anything in there for 15.1 kV. You're not going to have anything for 500 kV because you don't do 500 kV work. So you can take and use 70E as your recipe, as your ingredients for your recipe that specifically fits your business, right? So don't make the mistake in thinking, I'm buying the book, I'm handing it out, and everybody has a copy of it, and if anybody asks me, what's your safety plan? I show them this. That's not, in my opinion, that's not happening. All right, 90.4 in the NEC says it is intended to be legally adopted and enforceable by government agencies. 70E does not have a similar statement. That is exactly right. And Ryan, here's why I think. For that reason that that discussion that we just had, that this book are the ingredients for your meal. You may be vegan. Your ingredients, you're going to go into this and you're going to go, I'm vegan, so I'm not going to be doing this. I'm not going to be doing this. I'm not going to be doing that. Only a couple of these things are going to be applied to me. Or you may be not vegan. You might be a vegetarian. And vegetarians are a little bit different, right? You might do commercial work versus industrial work or residential work. Your hazards may be different that you're exposed to. You might work on motor control centers. You might not work on any motor control centers. So your hazards are going to be different. So you're going to build your recipe. And your hierarchy of risk controls methods are going to be different. Now, what does it say for hierarchy risk control methods, right? So we're in 110. We're in 110.5, the electrical safety program. It says that the risk assessment procedure shall require that preventative and protective risk control methods be implemented in accordance with the following hierarchy: elimination, substitution. What's right here? And they tell you that elimination, substitution, and engineering controls are the most effective. The first three. You want to, and what we need to be doing is thinking about, how do I have activities? How do I promote activities in my organization, in your organization, in your family, in your household, to get you into these first three categories? Now, that doesn't mean that we don't. This is what I love. I love when we talk about shock, we talk about GFCI protection. You'll have individuals who will say, well, Tom, that was a misuse of the product, and you shouldn't require GFCI protection because you misused the product, or you didn't install the product correctly, and you shouldn't have to have GFCI protection, and that's not a justification for GFCI protection because they misused the product. Well, that same argument would basically remove PPE from this list. We would never say that you don't have to wear PPE. You shouldn't be required to wear PPE. Because if you've done everything else correctly, you won't need PPE. The only reason you wear gloves is so you don't touch something energized. The only reason you wear an arc flash suit is so that you can handle the energy, the heat, when something goes wrong. And you could say nothing should go wrong because you should then, following these hierarchy of risk controls, you should not have a problem. You should hire qualified people. We plan for everything. You plan for that worst case issue at the end of the day. So you want to focus a lot of effort. And I would say in 2023, let's focus a lot of effort in these first three items of the hierarchy risk control methods. What can we do? What can we do to eliminate the hazards, substitution, or engineering controls? And awareness is awareness. We should be always doing. That's like, what I think, Willie, in my opinion, I agree with you. 2 calories. So that's a minimum dress. So what I've seen is some companies will say, we're either going to put you in a 2 calorie. I've heard 4 calories, 4 and 40, 2 and 40, right? So that you either are in a 4 or a 2, and it depends. It's chosen by the owner, right, on what they want to do, what they want to establish. I've seen some people cut it off at 4, and they dress 2 ways, and they teach their individuals to work 2 ways, either for a 4 cal or a 2 cal, to your point, Willie, or a 40. And they say, this is how you're going to dress. And they teach them and they educate them just on those 2 methods, because that simplifies life for everybody. Because if every job was different, you've got to sit down and think, how am I going to dress? Well, what do I need? I got to go to this table over here in 130.7 Charlie 15C. Oh, no. I don't use that one because it's a calculated method. So I use the calculation method. So I got to go to table 130.5G. And then I've got to look down, is it 1.2 to 12? What calorie pants do I need? You want to simplify. And that's why, Willie, they will do a 2 calorie and a 40 calorie, or a 4 and a 40. But it depends on the work you're doing. If you're doing residential, you choose more than what you need. So 2 calories. So in many cases, they'll use that 4 calories, and that is your arc flash PPE category 1 if you're using the PPE category method. But in any case, what can we do for those first 3? We should always be focusing on awareness. The administrative controls. What do we mean by administrative controls? All right, procedures. You should have your procedures out for your employees. You should have your training. You should be documenting training. And I would say that's awareness as well. But your procedures for training and how often you're going to train your individuals. The 2 calories, establishing a 2 calorie and a 40 cal. Those types of, this is the way you organize your plan for your guys and gals out there in the field. Your risk assessment, the risk assessment itself. how you conduct the risk assessment, how you document the risk assessment, who is involved in the risk assessment. Those are all your administrative controls. So I would argue, Willie and Ryan, I would argue that the first three is where you need to focus on how to go above and beyond. The last three are like, it's like, it's like the foundation of the house. You can't build a home without a foundation. You need to focus on awareness, administrative controls, and personal protective equipment. And you need to make that like, you need to make it to a point with your individuals where that's just, it's like, what do they call that when it's like automatic, right? And you need to think about what are you going to do for 1, 2, and 3 on this hierarchy of risk control methods. This is where the brainstorming should occur with your individuals on job sites. How can we eliminate hazards? How can we? There was a case of a forklift worker where an individual got hurt. Second nature, exactly, Robert. It's got to be second nature. 4, 5, and 6 is your cadence. It's like, it's a gotta do. But how do we eliminate substitute and engineering controls? So there was a case where they have a forklift worker and they hurt an individual who was in that area. The forklift, obviously, you think about a forklift, you're moving things from one place to another, etc. They had a person who was walking through that area who got hurt by the forklift. Whoever was operating the forklift, there's an awareness thing in there. There's did they have the right visibility, etc., all that jazz. But one way of avoiding a problem is when that forklift gets operated, they don't let anybody in that area outside of just that forklift operator and his equipment or her equipment, right? So that, as a result of that incident, that company instituted a control, administrative controls, a policy to say, look, when you are going to operate that forklift, you're going to hit a button and you're locking all the doors. You're going to make sure everybody's out of that room. You're going to lock all those doors because it's a tight area anyway, and nobody should be walking through there in the first place while you're operating and working. So we're going to make you lock the doors. You have emergency egress. We're going to lock the doors. Nobody is going to get in there other than you. So these are controls that you can put in place. And I would say those are administrative controls. But you could say, look, I've eliminated the hazard for these individuals because I've eliminated them from their presence in that room. So I have zero exposure to anybody outside of just that worker. Because remember what Annex K of 70E tells us, that it tells us electrical injuries represent a serious workplace health and safety issue to electrical and non-electrical workers. So, and I would say that's in general. If you're a drywaller, you have specific hazards. You're a welder, you have specific hazards. But that doesn't mean that your activity is only the hazard for other drywallers or other welders. Your hazards are for other people who may not have welded ever in their life. They don't know they're not allowed to look at that little blue flame, right? Don't look at the arc. We all know that. I mean, I drive down the road and I see people welding and I'm like, well, oof, I don't want to look at it. I've had the sand in my eyes before. I've done it. I've been there. Ain't happy, ain't pretty, right? But that's not something that other people know. I learned not to look at that little blue weld just because it happened to me on a job site when I was a kid. And I got my education afterwards, hey, don't do that. Why? Well, this is what happens if you look at that little blue flame. This is why I wear the glasses, etc. I wasn't a welder. I was just a kid. So, awareness is important, and And we have to be thinking about those who are not electrical workers. We also know in Annex K, informative Annex K, very good resource for you. It tells us that 98% of fatal occupational electrical injuries are electric shock injuries. Okay? Electric shock injuries. I got to just fix something here. Bear with me. So, looking at non-fatal. So, you have some real, over 40% of all electrical fatalities over 40% of all electrical fatalities. I'm going to have to hold on here. There we go. And remove. And remove. And remove. All right. So I said over 40% of all electrical fatalities in the U.S. involved overhead power line contact. A more detailed look at demographics. 99% of deaths were a result of electrocution. 70% occurred while the worker was performing a construction repair or cleaning activity. But electrical workers do have the exposure to the hazards, but also other people on that job site also are exposed. So you got to think outside of your own trade. All right. So I'm just looking to make sure I've got all the comments here. All right. So informative Annex K. Alrighty. Had to delete a couple of those comments. And I did. Because I'm like Johnny on the spot. All right, so okay, so let's just recap. Risk. It's a new year. It's a clean slate. Wipe all that stuff from last year off the table. Just push it all on the ground. Put it all in a trash can, throw it away, and we are starting fresh. We want to focus on safety this year. And I would argue you want to focus on elimination, substitution, and engineering controls. If we can focus on those three and make sure we keep the cadence on the others, make those, to Robert Duvall's, second nature. Focus on those first three items in the hierarchy risk control this year. How can you engineer, how can you apply arc reduction technologies? Apply barriers. Use technologies that cause less frequent maintenance, right? The whole lamping and relamping. If I can reduce the amount of times I have to get up on a lift, that's a good thing. If I can reduce incident energy, reduce the severity of an event, even though I have to do justified energized work, or even if it's not justified energized work, can I improve my lockout, tagout, my labeling? These are all ways to help manage risk, reduce likelihood and severity of an event if an event occurs. So let's take a look at that this year and hopefully keep an eye on 70E in its next cycle, because we're getting there. I need y'all to hit the thumbs up, but more importantly, subscribe. Robert was out there on Facebook. Thanks for joining. Get over to the YouTube site and subscribe to our IAEI YouTube site. We need like 4 or 5 more. I think it's 4 more people. Okay, get over there, and if you're watching on LinkedIn, which I see some people on LinkedIn, get over there to the YouTube site. And remember to explore our YouTube site. We're growing it. You're going to see Rudy had a great message. towards the end of the year. I think it was on Friday, right before New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Take a look at some of the resources out there on our YouTube site and explore it. Post some questions. We monitor the questions that come in on the YouTube site, so don't be afraid to post some questions, and we will do what we can to answer those. And we got one new subscriber today, so we're up. We got one more, so thank you for doing that. And you know what I should do? What I should do is we're not going to get off until we get 3 more people to subscribe. So Lou, thank you for joining in. Thanks for a great question, Lou. That was a really good question to kick us off. Willie Snyder, thank you. Robert, thank you. Davalis, Ryan Jackson, as usual, thank you very much for tuning in and joining in. Ben Straley, no question. The only stupid question is the unasked question. So thanks for joining in. Thanks for your question. And thanks for guys for educating me on lamp. It's not a bulb. Bulbs you put in the ground, lamps you put in the fixture. Not a fixture. The luminaire. Gosh, and Neds. Ryan, we gotta love it. All right. Fragile, Ben Straley. You like the coffee in it. Yes. All right, Joseph Wages, thank you for joining. Happy New Year to everybody. Felix Sandoval, thank you for joining. And I will be well. Hopefully you all will be well as well. So thanks for joining in. Thanks for all you do for electrical safety and for the electrical industry. Subscribing from a different email accounts? Absolutely. So you know what? Go out and create as many Gmail accounts as you can and get those subscriptions. Let's take a look. I got 997. We're at 998. We need 2 more. We need 2 more. Willie, go get some brothers. Mr. Sanchez, you are the man. Tell you, great. Oh, man. Good wine and good, what do you call that? Green salsa. I know there's a special name for it. Anyway, so we're at 998. We need 2 more. I think I gotta go. I gotta go create 2 more email addresses and just subscribe. So thank you for joining in, everybody. Don't forget to check out Rudy Garza's Happy New Year statement, and look for more from the IAEI on YouTube in 2023. So David, Felix, everybody out there, Ryan, thanks for all you do for the electrical safety and the electrical industry. Thanks for what you do for safety especially. So remember to stay safe and please stay healthy. See you next week. Ta-da.